He was laying there thinking, do I want to get up and live? Do I want to get up and fight?
Pro boxing fans here in Riyadh again with my friend Teddy Atlas. Teddy, it's a pleasure seeing you a lot more than usual nowadays. How are you? How's things?
A little jet lag maybe. I don't even know, because we were just here. It seems like we never left. We were just here a week ago, and here we are again. But that's what happens when you have somebody that is shaking up the boxing world, and they're shaking it up right now from the Middle East. And that somebody would obviously be the face of boxing, which I said on my podcast actually a few months ago. People were like a little, I don't know if they were upset, but they were a little surprised that I didn't call Canelo or Tyson Fury the face of boxing. I called Turki Al-Sheikh the face of boxing. I only say what I can comprehend in my mind from the things that make sense to me, that I see, that are happening. And from what I see and what's been happening for the last, year and more now, His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh has become the face in boxing. And, as great as the cherry on top is that there's nice people here. That's the cherry on top. That if you're being drawn somewhere because of your profession, which in my case obviously is boxing, and you're being drawn somewhere because of the fights, that is one thing. And special fights, that's even better. But if yours will go into a place where it turns out the people are nice and good and respectful and go out of their way to make you feel at home, as we say in my family, it's a blessing. So it's nice to be back, even if I am tired. It's good to be back with good people and to watch fights that should be taking place in boxing. Top guys fighting each other, best guys fighting the best guys. I sent out a post out today as we were getting on board, with this thing called Twitter, X, whatever they call it now. I'm a caveman. My son has to do it all for me. And so we put up a post, and I said in the post that we're going back to Riyadh again for fights and bringing back, again, good fights. And then I put in the post, but more importantly, boxing is going back to the mountaintop again, because it's becoming more relative again, the way it deserves to be, the way it should always be. It's taking the front pages, if you will, the way it should for a sport that's been around this long and entails such risk and such dangers to the fighters and gives so much to the fans. The sport is now back on top because of what's going on here. It's going to go past here. It's going to go to London. It's going to go to Los Angeles. It's going to go to other places. But right now, it originated from here, and making important fights, making fights that just weren't going to be made, and again, making the sport, making people talk about the sport and be interested in the sport and passionate about the sport the way it used to be. Quite honestly, the last time I remember being this relative, I'll tell you, Oni. And by the way, I know that you don't look for this, and you don't usually get this, but I do these with you because the same reason. You're a good person. I look forward to seeing you because you care about the sport, you care about the people. You just got a birthday cake for my son because I told you it was my son's birthday. The day that we're traveling here is his birthday, and you went and had them bring a birthday cake and they sang a song just like we were back in the States. No different. See, people are no different. You get good people. I don't care where you are in the world. It's not different. They might look different. They might speak a little different. But in here it's the same. If you care about people, you care about people wherever you are. and it shows. So I appreciate that, and like I said, it's also a blessing to have my son be traveling with me and be part of this. But again, 5 versus 5.
So far, Deontay Wilder.
The headline is Wilder and Zhang. Anytime you can make an argument, I said this seems like yesterday, but it was last week for the Usyk Fury fight. Anytime you can argue both sides and you can argue them intelligently, where there's an argument to say either guy can win, you have an interesting fight and potentially a very good fight, but an intriguing fight. You could argue both sides here, and there's elements floating in the air that are going to decide this, and we don't know until we get there how they're going to play out. But age is one. Both guys are older. 38 for Wilder, 41, I believe, for Zhang. Both good punches, obviously. I'll go a step further. I think Wilder is as good for one punch, for one hand, the right hand, obviously, is as good a punch as not only any in the heavyweight division now, but maybe ever. I mean, he's at that caliber where he punches that hard with the right hand. I mean, we had guys named Max Baer years ago could really do damage with the right hand. We had Ernie Shavers, of course, George Foreman, all those guys. Some of them punched well with either hand. But for one hand, Wilder punches as well as anybody with that one punch. And when you have that kind of explosive device in your gloves, it's an eraser, where it can erase a lot of mistakes and technical mistakes. He makes mistakes, Wilder, technically, but when you have that power, it can erase it. And that's what's intriguing about and that's the last thing that leaves you if you do get old. When you get old, timing will leave you, speed will flee from you a little bit, reflexes obviously will betray you. But power will stay, and it'll be the power of him against the power of Zhang. The way I break it down, Zhang is more solid technically, and I think we saw in the Wilder fight that if you back him up the way Fury did the second time, there's different ways to keep somebody. Neutralize someone's power. One way is the way Fury did the first time, to be honest, where you box, you keep more power, but he did get caught twice. But where you box, you give angles, you use your legs, you keep more balance, where he can't get set for that power. The other way is you back him up where he can't be set. And Fury did it both ways. He did it the first fight, which wound up being a draw. He did get caught twice, which was remarkable the way he got up, the heart he showed, the incredible will that he showed to get up from that second knockdown, which is the reason why Fury, was here a week ago for that incredible moment to unify all the titles. It's all because he got up against Wilder that night when a lot of people wouldn't have got up. Matter of fact, when he was laying there, it seemed like an eternity, and he got up 7, 8, 9. He got up, and I had a theory. I talked about it on my podcast and stuff. I said, I thought he was, how sometimes we talk about your life passes in front of you? When he was on the ground from that punch, that lightning bolt from the sky from Wilder, I had said that I thought he was thinking about whether or not to get up. He was thinking about whether or not to live or die. And when I say live or die, it doesn't have to, living don't always have to be quantified in physically taking a breath and your heart beating or not beating. Living means caring about life. Living means being part of, what going out there and striving for life, doing what you want to do, being passionate about life. going after life, living life. That's it don't have to be the physical component of, being, like I said, having a pulse or not. And I thought that kind of symbolized that. It was like a metaphor for, do you want to live? He was laying there thinking, do I want to get up and live? Do I want to get up and fight? Do I want to get up and be all the things that we should strive to be when we've given that great gift of life, from our Creator? He was contemplating it, because you got to remember his backstory. He had been in a place where it was very dark, where he was at a place where nobody should be, where he had thought about giving up the most precious gift of all, life, and he came out of that. And it wasn't that long ago before that fight that he had come out of it. And there he was, comes out of it, gets dropped, laying there thinking, all right, okay, Tyson, like almost talking about, all right, Tyson, you going to live or you going to just exist and just say, oh, I came back and I did pretty good. Or you going to live? And he got up, he lived, and look what it brought him. Look what it brought. It's a lesson for everyone. That's what's important about boxing. That's what's important about what's being done here, bringing boxing back the way it is that boxing is truly a metaphor for life. Everyone fights for something. Everyone fights for something in life. Everyone. Just no matter what are you fighting for. And it's important for people to see fighters, find a way to go somewhere where it looked like they couldn't. It teaches us all. It reminds us all that there's a further place to go. There's a further. And I was saying earlier that right now, what really Turki Al-Sheikh has done by putting these fights together, it's the healthiest for me. It's the healthiest time I've seen boxing since the 80s. Yeah, because the 80s had a couple elements to it. First of all, it had network television, which really helped because everyone could see it for free. It had network television, ABC, NBC, CBS. But the most important thing was there was a lot of special, great fighters around in the 80s. Almost makes you forget that there's great fighters around today. I'll be honest with you. I was thinking a few years ago, you don't have the fighters around today that you had in the 80s. And then all of a sudden I corrected myself. I said, Teddy, you're wrong. You're never going to match that era. But every era is unique into its own. But I was like, no, you do have really special fighters today. The problem is we forgot because they weren't fighting each other. We actually forgot. So the great thing about the 80s was when you had Duran, you had Leonard, and some of the greatest fighters of all time, and they really were. And you had Marvin Hagler. And you had, Pernell Whitaker, Aaron Pryor. Yeah, I mean, just so many guys. Matthew Saad Muhammad in the light heavyweights. Wow. And he's fighting Jerry the Bull Martin. He's fighting Yaki Lopez. He's fighting Dwight Kwawi. And you had all those guys, those tremendous, talented fighters, fight each other. It was a great time for boxing. Everybody wanted to be part of it. Everyone had to watch because the best were fighting the best. And that's what was missing. Up until about a year and a half, 2 years ago, recently in this business, what was missing was the best one fighting the best. So you actually didn't realize you had that quality of fighter in this era. You really didn't. You said, back in the 80s, Teddy, you're right, Sugar Ray, and they are special. Sugar Ray Leonard, Duran, Hagler, you don't have fighters. No, we have really good fighters today that are very special, but until they fight each other, it's not recognized. It's not understood because great fighters have to fight great fighters to be great, to bring out the greatness. to bring out that special quality. And we're in a renaissance. We're in a really a special time that we're bringing that back. That it's been brought back. Where the best are fighting the best, and it's going to head off the 5 versus 5 with the Zhang fight. And like I said, Zhang could back him up. I can see him backing him up. I can see he's got a good jab. He's got a hard jab. It's a foam pole jab, like a George Foreman kind of jab, where it could rock you. It's heavy. It's straight. I can see him backing up Wilder, or trying to back him up, and in the first few rounds, and seeing if he could possibly do what Fury did in the second fight. Hey, I could also see Wilder. I always, when I was doing all the commentary on ESPN, I always called the right hand the southpaw killer. Zhang's a southpaw, and Wilder got a right hand. I could also see that play into it, where if that right hand lands on Zhang, you know what Muhammad Ali said when he was supposed to fight Will Chamberlain, the giant basketball player? He said, after I hit you, you know what's going to happen? You're going to hear timber, and so you could see that. I can see that scenario. Either way, I could see. Here's the X factor. Neither guy at these points in their careers, because of age, because of wear and tear. Look, Wilder's got a lot of heart. A lot was left in the ring in those Fury fights. A lot. We don't know how much, but something was left in the ring. Zhang is a huge man, close to 300 pounds, and he's 41. It's hard to keep up a consistent offensive output at that size and that age. Endurance. It's hard to be able to have that kind of cardiovascular consistently for 12 rounds. And we've seen it. We've seen it in Zhang against Dubois, where he faded. And we've seen it with Wilder against Parker, where, it was hard to maintain a consistent offensive output, if you will. But I would favor Wilder in that area, that he probably would be a better bet to have endurance late. Here's the question. Are we going to be late? Are we going to be late in that fight? We might not be late. That might be a moot point. So it's a very interesting fight, that first one.
What's your thoughts on Dubois, Hrgovic? Dubois obviously fought Usyk, then a good fight against Baby Miller in Riyadh. Hrgovic's had a few fights since the Zhang fight. A lot of people thought he might have lost that fight. How do you see this one playing out? There's a big carrot dangling that in September one of these fighters could be facing Anthony Joshua in London. How do you see this fight playing out?
No, it's a very interesting fight. I like it. It's a very interesting. Look, I see other things. I've been in the business 50 years, so I can't help but go a little deeper sometimes, because for me in this business, sometimes you have to go beneath the surface, past the jab and right hand, past the obvious. First of all, Hrgovic in that fight with Zhang, very close. I thought Hrgovic won, but very close, no doubt. And Hrgovic may have pulled it out in the late rounds, but close fight. He's got good size, good skills, technically solid. He's a button-up, solid technical fighter, Hrgovic, where he's pretty standard. What do I mean by standard? Where he uses a jab to set the table. He looks to eat with the right hand, if you will. He'll put punches together on you in spots. He'll go to the body as well as the head. He's rudimentally solid. He's fundamentally solid. He knows how to control range pretty good. But as we saw in the Zhang fight, you can hit him. That makes it interesting. Even though it's a floor for a trainer, for me as a trainer, if I'm on the side of the trainer, don't make it interesting. I'm like, that's not good. But for the fans, yeah, it makes it interesting. And it also means he's there. You don't have to go run around to find him. So if you can touch him, that means he's usually then willing to engage with you. Here's the thing about, it's all about Dubois, this fight, for me. Because Dubois always had the tools, had the abilities to be a top heavyweight. And then in his two biggest fights against Joyce, who was undefeated at the time, Usyk, who's still undefeated, he came up short. I know there was controversy in the Usyk fight with the body punch, all that. Put that aside. Bottom line, who was left standing at the end? Not him. The point I'm making is both of his biggest fights with all his ability, and he can fight. He came up short because when push came to shove, when that moment of truth came, he came up short. He faltered. He came up short when that moment to go a little further, to overcome. I have a saying in boxing. I've been saying this for a few years now. A fight's not a fight until there's something to overcome. Until then, it's just an athletic exhibition. It's just who's got faster hands, who's a better puncher, who's more clever. Until there's something to overcome, it's not really a fight. And when he had something to overcome, he came up short. And then what happened? He fights Miller. And Miller, yeah, he was 300-some pounds, all that stuff. Miller used to be a top prospect. And he was undefeated. And he came that night with one idea, that he understood what I'm talking about. He had seen Dubois falter when the moment of truth came, where he didn't keep himself together, that he fell apart. And Miller came to do one thing, make him fall apart. Yeah, Miller got hit too much, but Miller kept coming, and he showed a lot of grit and a lot of heart. Miller kept coming and coming and coming all night, figuring in his mind that he's going to break him down. He's going to do what Joyce did, he's going to do what Usyk did. He's going to break him down, and it never happened. Dubois was fighting for something much more important than a purse that night. He was fighting for redemption. He was fighting for himself. He was fighting for the right to feel the way he wants to feel as a man and a fighter the rest of his life. He was fighting for Daniel Dubois, for the right to feel the way we all want to feel, to have that dignity, to feel that we're worth something. He was fighting to redeem his reputation. And boy, oh boy, do I give him credit. Man, oh man. He showed the same abilities he's always shown. No different. But he's shown the resolve, the will, the X factor, the it factor that he had never shown before. He put it all together. And that's the question here. You know who he reminded me of? I'll tell you who he reminded me of. Someone years ago. I don't know how many years, 20-some years ago. You're going to be surprised. But when I tell you, you're going to probably think, yeah, it makes sense. He reminded me of Buster Douglas. Buster Douglas always had ability, always could fight, always was taught that he was going to be a champion. And yet, when he fought his biggest fights, when there was something to overcome, like the Tony Tucker fight, those fights, he fell apart. He never put it all together. And then he fought a guy named Mike Tyson one night in a place in Tokyo, in the Tokyo Dome. And what did he do that night? He put it all together. And he fought not just with skills, but he fought with will too. And he pulled off the biggest upset, maybe, in the history of sports, definitely in the history of boxing. Dubois reminds me of Buster Douglas, that against Miller, that's what he did. He put it all together. But here's the question. Is he here to stay? Is that Dubois here to stay? That's what this fight's going to answer for me. If he fights with that same will, the way he did against Miller, if he now has it all together and keeps it together, that is going to be one heck of a fight. I give a little edge to Hrgovic on the outside with the jab and what I said, the straight punches. But for me, if I'm with Dubois, I want to try to get inside. He showed me a really nice body attack. He showed me an ability to work really nice on the inside. And Hrgovic, if he's got a shortcoming, I haven't seen him as an inside fighter.